Now your Mustang looks exactly as pathetic as you are.
The coffee smelled wrong. Not just bitter wrong or burnt wrong, but chemically wrong, like someone had dumped cleaning solution into my morning cup. I stared at the steaming mug Marta had just placed in front of me with that fake smile she'd been wearing for weeks. "Made you something special, honey," she purred, her voice dripping with artificial sweetness that made my skin crawl. "I'm Will Dexter, 42 years old, senior mechanical engineer at Morrison Industries, and I've been married to Marta for 19 years. 19 years of what I thought was partnership, loyalty, and love. Turns out I was wrong about all three. The kitchen felt different this morning. Heck, everything felt different. Marta stood there in her silk robe, perfectly made up at 7 in the morning like she was heading to a photo shoot instead of her job at Pinnacle Advertising. Her sister Victoria sat at our breakfast bar, already dressed in one of those power suits that cost more than my monthly salary, scrolling through her phone with that perpetual sneer she reserved for me. "Will, you look tired," Victoria said without looking up. "Maybe you should take a vacation, somewhere far away, for a long time." The way she said it made my engineer brain start calculating probabilities. Victoria never showed up for breakfast. Victoria never showed up for anything unless there was money or gossip involved. Yet here she was at 7:15 on a Tuesday morning, watching me like a hawk watches a mouse. I picked up the coffee mug, inhaling that strange chemical smell again. Something clicked in my head, the same instinct that had saved my A countless times when dealing with faulty machinery. When something doesn't smell right, doesn't look right, doesn't feel right, you don't touch it until you figure out what's wrong. "You know what, Victoria? You're absolutely right. I am tired." I set the mug down and grabbed Victoria's coffee instead. "Mind if I try yours? Marta makes yours so much better than mine." "Wait, that's..." Marta started, but I was already drinking Victoria's coffee. It tasted normal. Good, even. Victoria's eyes went wide. "I don't think you should..." "What? Drink coffee in my own kitchen?" I smiled at both of them, that same fake smile Marta had been giving me. "Here, Victoria, you take mine. Marta says it's special." Before either of them could protest, I switched our mugs. Victoria, always the aggressive one, grabbed the cup and took a large gulp just to prove some point about dominance in my own house. "Delicious," she said with that trademark smirk. 20 minutes later, Victoria was sprinting toward our guest bathroom like her life depended on it. The sounds that followed would haunt our family gatherings for years to come. Violent, explosive sounds that echoed through our house like a plumbing disaster mixed with a dying walrus. Marta went pale. Not concerned pale, but caught red-handed pale. "Oh my God, Victoria must have food poisoning," she said, but her voice cracked on the lie. I pulled out my phone and started recording the chaos. Call it engineer's instinct. Document everything, especially the failures. Victoria's mortified screams from the bathroom, Marta's panicked pacing, the smell that was now wafting through our entire first floor. "Food poisoning," I repeated slowly, "from coffee. Maybe she ate something bad last night. Or maybe someone put something in her coffee that was meant for someone else." Marta's face went through several expressions: denial, anger, calculation, and finally that innocent look she'd perfected over the years. "Will, you're being paranoid. Why would anyone put something in coffee?" The bathroom door slammed open and Victoria stumbled out, her perfect makeup ruined, her power suit wrinkled and stained. She looked like she'd been through a war zone. "What the heck was in that coffee?" she gasped, clutching her stomach. "Nothing," Marta said quickly. "You must have eaten something." "I haven't eaten anything since yesterday evening." Victoria's voice rose to a shriek. "And I feel like my insides are trying to escape through my..." She didn't finish the sentence before rushing back to the bathroom. My phone captured every mortifying second. I looked at Marta, really looked, and saw a stranger. The woman I'd married, the mother of my children, the person I'd trusted with my life for nearly 2 decades, had just tried to knock me out. The only question was why. "Special coffee," I said quietly. "Will, I don't know what you're thinking, but I'm thinking my wife just tried to poison me and my sister-in-law got the dose instead." Marta's face hardened. The innocent act dropped like a curtain. "You're being ridiculous and paranoid. Maybe you should talk to someone about these delusions." Delusions. The word hit me like a punch to the gut. She was already building the narrative. Crazy husband, paranoid thoughts, probably needs professional help. I could see the whole scheme laying itself out in my mind like a blueprint. Make me sick, disoriented, unstable. Say I'm having a breakdown, get me committed, or at the very least discredited. And then what? Take the house, the kids, everything? Victoria emerged from the bathroom again, this time moving like an old woman. I need to go home. I need to see a doctor. I think I'm dying. I'll drive you, Marta offered quickly. No, I said. I think Victoria should stay here until we figure out what happened. We should probably call poison control. Poison control? Marta's voice went up an octave. Well, if it's not poison, they'll tell us it's food poisoning. If it is poison, they'll tell us what kind. Either way, we get answers. Victoria was too sick to argue. Marta was too trapped to object without looking guilty. I made the call. 2 hours later, after Victoria had been rushed to the hospital and pumped full of IV fluids, I had my answer. Magnesium sulfate, Epsom salts, a massive dose that had turned Victoria's digestive system into a disaster zone. The doctor was very clear. This wasn't accidental. Someone put a lot of this in whatever she consumed. We're talking about enough to cause severe dehydration and electrolyte imbalance. If she hadn't gotten medical attention, this could have been dangerous. I looked at Marta in the hospital corridor. She was texting someone, her fingers flying over her phone screen with urgent intensity. Who are you texting? I asked. Work. Telling them I'll be late. I moved behind her, just close enough to see the screen. The message wasn't going to her office. It was going to someone named Jake, and it read, Plan failed. He switched the cups. Victoria got it instead. We need to talk. Jake. I knew that name. Jake Turnbull, Marta's coworker at the ad agency. The guy she'd been mentioning a lot lately. The guy who'd been helping her with special projects that kept her at the office until 9 or 10 at night. Everything clicked into place like gears in a machine. The late nights, the new clothes, the sudden interest in fitness and appearance, the way she'd been treating me like an inconvenience instead of a husband. And now the coffee. The special coffee that was supposed to put me in the hospital, or worse. I stepped back and pulled out my own phone, taking a picture of her texting Jake. She was so focused on her message that she didn't notice. Her phone buzzed with a response. Meet me at the usual place. We'll figure this out. Can't wait to hold you. My wife of 19 years was cheating on me, and she just tried to mess with my head, part of some twisted plan she was clearly in on with her lover. I felt something cold settle in my chest. Not heartbreak. I'd deal with that later. This was something else, something calculating and precise. The same feeling I got when I was designing a solution to a complex engineering problem. Marta looked up from her phone and caught me watching her. For just a second, I saw fear in her eyes. Then the mask slipped back into place. The doctor says Victoria will be fine, she said. Just needs rest and fluids. Good to know. I smiled at her, and for the first time in weeks, it was genuine. Not because I was happy, but because I finally understood the problem I was trying to solve. I'm going to head home and clean up the mess, I continued. You stay with Victoria. Make sure she's okay. Are you sure? Absolutely. Family first, right? Marta nodded, relief flooding her face. She thought she'd dodged the bullet. She thought I was buying her act. I kissed her forehead like a loving husband and walked out of the hospital. But I wasn't going home to clean up. I was going home to start documenting everything. Every lie, every late night, every suspicious text message. Because if Marta thought she could destroy me with some half-assed poisoning scheme and a cheating scandal, she was about to learn what happens when you mess with an engineer who has time, tools, and a very specific set of skills. I'm Will Dexter, and I've just been handed the most interesting problem of my career. How to completely dismantle someone's life using nothing but logic, planning, and their own mistakes. Game on. 3 days after the coffee incident, Marta announced she was going to Chicago for a client presentation. She stood in our bedroom packing her overnight bag with the kind of careful attention she usually reserved for our anniversary dinners. It's just one night, she said, folding a black lace negligee that I hadn't seen in over a year. The Hartwell account is huge for us. I was sitting on the bed, watching her pack lingerie for a business trip like it was the most normal thing in the world. Hartwell Industries? I know some guys who work there. Want me to put in a good word? Her hands paused for just a fraction of a second. No, that's okay. We want to handle this internally. Internally. With Jake, no doubt. Which hotel are you staying at? The Marriott downtown. Nothing fancy. I nodded and pulled out my phone, pretending to check emails while actually opening the app I'd installed to track our shared car. 3 days ago, after the hospital visit, I'd made a quick trip to the electronics store. 15 minutes and $60 later, I had a GPS tracker synced to my phone. The beauty of being married to someone who knows nothing about technology. Want me to drive you to the airport? Jake's picking me up. He's going to the same meeting. Of course he was. Jake Turnbull. I'd done my research on Marta's coworker over the past few days. 39 years old, divorced, drives a custom Mustang that he posts about constantly on Instagram. The kind of guy who takes selfies at the gym and uses way too many hashtags. The kind of guy who thinks sleeping with married women makes him some sort of alpha male. The kind of guy who is about to learn what happens when you mess with the wrong husband. Well, have fun in Chicago, I said, kissing her cheek. She smelled like expensive perfume and guilt. After she left, I waited exactly 30 minutes before checking the GPS tracker. Marta's car wasn't heading toward the airport. It was heading downtown, toward the Riverside Hotel. Not the Marriott, the Riverside. I grabbed my keys and my camera. The Riverside Hotel was the kind of place that catered to people having affairs. Discreet, expensive, with a parking garage that kept cars out of sight. I parked across the street and waited. 20 minutes later, Marta's car pulled into the garage. I gave them time to get settled, then walked into the hotel lobby like I belonged there. The bar was dimly lit and half empty, perfect for cheating spouses who thought they were being clever. I ordered a beer and positioned myself where I could see the entire room. They walked in at 8:30, holding hands like teenagers. Marta had changed into a dress I'd never seen before. Red, tight, expensive. Jake was exactly what I'd expected from his Instagram photos. Gym-built, overconfident, wearing a suit that probably cost more than my monthly mortgage payment. I pulled out my phone and started recording. They sat in a corner booth, whispering and laughing like they were the only people in the world. Jake kept touching her hand, her arm, her face. Marta was glowing in a way I hadn't seen in years. "Can't believe we pulled this off," Jake said, loud enough for me to hear. "Your husband actually bought the Chicago story?" "Will's not exactly the suspicious type," Marta replied. "He trusts everyone. It's actually kind of pathetic." Pathetic. My wife of 19 years, the mother of my children, thought I was pathetic. "Good thing the coffee thing didn't work out," Jake continued. "This is way better than having him committed." Having me committed. So that had been the plan. Slip something into my system, make me seem unstable, get me locked up, then take everything while I was gone. I kept recording as they ordered another round of drinks and started talking about their future together. Marta's divorce lawyer, Jake's new apartment, how they'd split my assets, how they'd tell the kids that Daddy had a breakdown and couldn't take care of them anymore. They talked about me like I was already dead. I finished my beer, paid my tab, and walked out to the parking garage. Jake's Mustang was parked in a corner spot, away from other cars. Pristine paint job, custom rims, vanity plates that read, "Jaketh's Enk. Jake the Snake." How original. I pulled out my keys and walked over to the car. The paint job really was beautiful. Metallic blue with silver racing stripes. Must have cost him a fortune. I dragged my house key along the driver's side door, spelling out homewrecker in letters 6 inches tall. Then I moved to the passenger side and added, "Pathetic," in the same careful script. The scratches went deep, down to the metal. It would cost thousands to repair. I was walking back to my car when I heard footsteps behind me. "Hey! Hey, a-hole!" I turned around. Jake was running toward me across the parking garage, his face red with rage. He must have been watching from the hotel room window. "You scratched my car, you psycho!" "Prove it," I said calmly. He was bigger than me, younger, clearly spent a lot of time at the gym, but he was also drunk and angry, which made him sloppy. "I saw you. I saw it with my own eyes." "You saw me walking through a parking garage. That's not a crime." He swung at me, a wild haymaker that I saw coming from a mile away. I stepped aside and let his momentum carry him past me, then gave him a little push that sent him stumbling into the concrete wall. "Careful there, Jake. Wouldn't want you to hurt yourself." He spun around, even angrier now. "You think you're smart? You think you can just—" I slapped him. Not a punch, just an open-handed slap across the face like he was a misbehaving child. The sound echoed through the parking garage. "I think I'm married to a woman who deserves better than a gym rat who drives a scratched-up Mustang," I said. "But hey, maybe that's just me." Jake's face went white, then red, then white again. He was trying to process what had just happened. Big, tough guy, slapped like a little boy by the pathetic husband. "This isn't over," he said. "No, it's not. It's just getting started." I walked back to my car, got in, and drove away. In my rearview mirror, I could see Jake standing next to his ruined Mustang, taking pictures with his phone. Good. Let him call the police. Let him try to prove I did anything wrong. I was just a concerned husband who happened to be in the same parking garage as his cheating wife and her boyfriend. My phone buzzed with a text from Marta. Having dinner with the client. Might be late. Love you. I texted back, love you too. Have fun in Chicago. Then I drove home and started planning phase 2. Because if Jake and Marta thought a slap and some scratched paint was the extent of my revenge, they were about to learn just how wrong they could be. I'm an engineer. I solve problems. And right now, my biggest problem was a cheating wife and her boyfriend who thought they could destroy my life without consequences. Time to show them what consequences actually look like. The video of Victoria's bathroom disaster went viral in our family circle within 6 hours of me posting it to the family Facebook group. Not the graphic parts, I'm not a monster, but enough to show her stumbling out of our guest bathroom looking like she'd been hit by a truck, followed by her mortified explanation of what had happened. My caption was simple. When coffee goes wrong. Poor Victoria. Hope she feels better soon. #FamilyFirst coffee disaster. Within an hour, I had 37 comments and 12 shares. Victoria's coworkers had seen it. Her book club had seen it. Her pretentious country club friends had seen it. Victoria called me at 6 in the morning screaming, "Take it down! Take that video down right now!" Good morning to you too, Victoria. How are you feeling? You know exactly how I'm feeling. Everyone at work is talking about it. My boss asked me if I needed to see a gastroenterologist. Well, do you? Because magnesium sulfate poisoning is nothing to joke about. Silence on the other end of the line. Poisoning? She said finally. Didn't Marta tell you? The hospital confirmed it. Someone put Epsom salts in that coffee. A lot of Epsom salts. If you hadn't gotten medical attention, you could have died. More silence. I could practically hear the gears turning in Victoria's head. But that would mean someone tried to poison me, and you got it instead when I switched our cups. Funny how that worked out. Victoria hung up on me. 20 minutes later, Marta called. Will, we need to talk. Good morning, sweetheart. How was Chicago? Don't play games with me. Victoria told me about the video. What video? Oh, you mean the family video where I documented her mysterious illness? The one that turned out to be poisoning? You can't prove anything. Interesting choice of words. Not, I didn't do anything wrong, or how could you think I would hurt you? Just, you can't prove anything. I don't need to prove anything, Marta. The hospital already did that. Magnesium sulfate, administered in a hot beverage, enough to cause serious harm. Victoria must have taken something. She's always taking supplements and diet pills. Victoria doesn't drink coffee, Marta. She's been a tea drinker for 15 years. The only reason she drank that coffee was because I gave it to her. The coffee you made specially for me. Silence. I'm coming home, she said finally. Great, I'll make coffee. She hung up. I spent the next hour setting up my laptop to record everything. Hidden camera apps, audio recording software, backup storage in the cloud. If Marta wanted to have a conversation about what happened, I was going to make sure I had every word documented. She walked in at 10:30 looking like she hadn't slept. Her business trip clothes were wrinkled, her makeup was smudged, and she smelled like hotel soap and guilt. We need to discuss what happened with Victoria, she said, sitting down at our kitchen table. Absolutely. Someone tried to poison me, and your sister got hurt instead. I think we should call the police. The police? Well, attempted poisoning is a felony, and if someone's trying to hurt me, I want them caught before they try again. Marta went pale. Will, you're being dramatic. Nobody tried to poison you. Then how do you explain the Epsom salts in my coffee? Maybe you put them there. I stared at her. Maybe I poisoned myself? Maybe you're having some kind of breakdown. Maybe you're trying to frame me for something I didn't do. Maybe you need professional help. There it was again. The mental health angle. Paint the husband as unstable, discredit anything he says, set up a narrative where she's the victim of a delusional spouse. You know what, Marta? You might be right. Maybe I should talk to someone professional, like a lawyer. Her face went white. A lawyer? Well, if someone's trying to poison me, I should probably make sure my affairs are in order. Update my will, maybe set up a trust for the kids. You know, in case something happens to me. Nothing's going to happen to you. How can you be so sure? She didn't have an answer for that. Oh, by the way, I continued, how was the Hartwell presentation? It went fine. That's great. I'm sure Jake was a big help. She flinched at his name. Jake's a good colleague. I'm sure he is. Hey, did you hear someone vandalized his car while you guys were in Chicago? Scratched homewrecker and pathetic right into the paint. Can you believe that? Marta's eyes went wide. Who told you that? Jake posted about it on Instagram. Really upset about it. Filed a police report and everything. Weird coincidence, right? You're in Chicago on business and someone attacks your colleague's car. It's a big city. Things like that happen. Except you weren't in Chicago, were you? The words hung in the air between us like a live wire. What are you talking about? I pulled out my phone and showed her the GPS tracking app. A neat little trail from our house to the Riverside Hotel downtown, where it had stayed for 14 hours before returning home. Technology is amazing, isn't it? I can see exactly where our car went, and it never got within 50 miles of Chicago. Marta stared at the phone screen like it was a snake about to bite her. You're tracking me? I'm tracking our car. The car that was supposed to be at the airport, then Chicago, then back to the airport, but instead spent the night at a hotel with a man who isn't your husband. She stood up, knocking her chair backward. You have no right. I have every right. You're my wife. That's my car. And when someone tries to poison me, I get very interested in their whereabouts. I want a divorce. The words hit like a slammed door. Sudden, final, impossible to take back. Okay, I said. She blinked. Okay? Sure. I'll call Ruth Goldman tomorrow. She's the best family law attorney in the state. We'll get the paperwork started. Ruth Goldman costs $300 an hour. Good thing I've been saving money. Amazing how much you can put away when you're not buying expensive lingerie and paying for hotel rooms. Marta's face went through several expressions: shock, anger, calculation, and finally something that looked almost like respect. You're not the same person I married, she said. No, I'm not. The person you married was naive enough to trust you. The person you married wouldn't have noticed the late nights, the new clothes, the sudden interest in fitness. The person you married definitely wouldn't have switched coffee cups when something smelled wrong. I stood up and walked toward her. She actually took a step backward. But here's the thing, Marta. I'm still the same person who spent 19 years building a life with you. The same person who worked 60-hour weeks so you could go back to school. The same person who took care of you when you had pneumonia, who held your hand during labor, who taught our kids to ride bikes while you were at your book club meetings. I was close enough now that I could see the fear in her eyes. I'm the same person who loved you enough to overlook a lot of things I probably shouldn't have overlooked. But I'm also the same person who designs systems for a living. And when a system fails, I figure out why, I fix what can be fixed, and I replace what can't be fixed. Are you threatening me? I'm explaining to you that this marriage is a failed system, and I'm very, very good at handling failures. She grabbed her purse and headed for the door. Where are you going? Out. I need to think. Give Jake my regards. She slammed the door hard enough to rattle the windows. I sat back down at the kitchen table and opened my laptop. Time to do some more research on Jake Turnbull. If Marta wanted to escalate this war, I was going to make sure I had all the intelligence I needed. Because the coffee and the hotel confrontation were just the opening moves. The real game was about to begin. And I was playing to win. Ruth Goldman's office looked exactly like what you'd expect from a lawyer who charged $300 an hour. Expensive furniture, law books that probably cost more than my car, and a view of the city that screamed success. Ruth herself was nothing like what you'd expect. 5 feet tall, 60 years old, with gray hair, and the kind of smile that made opposing attorneys wake up in cold sweats. Will Dexter, she said, standing up from behind her massive desk. I haven't seen you since college. You look like heck. Thanks, Ruth. You look terrifying. I mean that as a compliment. She laughed and gestured for me to sit down. So your wife tried to poison you and now she wants a divorce. Did I get that right? That's the simplified version. Give me the complicated version. I spent the next hour walking Ruth through everything. The coffee incident, the fake business trip, the hotel confrontation, the GPS tracking, the scratched car. I showed her the hospital records, the text messages I'd managed to screenshot, the video evidence from the hotel bar. Ruth took notes on a legal pad, occasionally asking questions or raising an eyebrow at particularly damning details. This is good, she said finally. Really good. Attempted poisoning, adultery, conspiracy to commit fraud if they were planning to have you committed. We can work with this. What are my options? Depends what you want. Do you want to reconcile? Heck no. Do you want revenge? Heck yes, Ruth smiled. Then we're going to take everything. The house, the cars, the retirement accounts, the kids. When we're done, Marta's going to be living in a studio apartment and working at Starbucks. Is that legal? Perfectly legal. Adultery is still grounds for divorce in this state, and attempted poisoning is a felony. Any judge is going to look at this evidence and give you everything you ask for. She leaned back in her chair. But here's the thing, Will. If we do this, we do it right. No more amateur detective work. No more confrontations in parking garages. You let me handle the legal strategy, and you focus on documenting everything they do from now on. What about assets? Can she clean out our accounts? Not if we move first. Ruth pulled out a stack of papers. I'm going to set up an emergency trust for your children's education and welfare. We'll move all joint assets into the trust, with you as the administrator. Perfectly legal, and it protects everything until the divorce is finalized. How long will that take? With this much evidence? 6 months, maybe less. And Will? She looked at me over her reading glasses. Don't feel guilty about this. Your wife tried to poison you. She's lucky you're not pressing criminal charges. Yet. I signed the papers and wrote Ruth a check for her retainer. Walking out of her office, I felt something I hadn't felt in months. Hope. My phone buzzed with a text from Marta. We need to talk about money. I can't access our savings account. I texted back. Talk to my lawyer. What lawyer? Ruth Goldman. She's handling our divorce. My phone rang immediately. Ruth Goldman? Will, she costs a fortune. Good thing I moved our money into a trust for the kids' education. Every penny is going toward their future. You can't do that. I just did. It's all perfectly legal. Ruth made sure of that. Silence on the other end of the line. Will, we can work this out. We don't need lawyers. We needed lawyers the moment you tried to poison me. I never tried to. Marta, I have hospital records, GPS evidence, and video footage of you planning my downfall with your boyfriend. The only thing we need to work out is whether I press criminal charges or just take you for everything in the divorce. You're bluffing. Am I? Why don't you call Jake and ask him how his car is doing? She hung up. 20 minutes later, I was in my garage when I heard footsteps on my driveway. Through the window, I could see Jake walking toward my front door. He was wearing a suit that probably cost more than most people's monthly rent, and he was walking with the kind of swagger that suggested he thought he was about to intimidate me. I opened the garage door and stepped outside. Jake! What a surprise! How's the Mustang? He stopped walking and turned toward me. Up close, he was exactly what I'd expected. Gym muscles, expensive cologne, and the kind of fake confidence that crumbles under pressure. We need to talk, he said. About what? About you staying away from Marta. I laughed. Staying away from my own wife? Your marriage is over, old man. Marta's with me now. The sooner you accept that, the easier this will be for everyone. Everyone? You mean everyone like Victoria, who ended up in the hospital because of your brilliant poisoning scheme? Jake's face went white. I don't know what you're talking about. Sure you don't. Just like you don't know anything about planning to have me committed so you and Marta could take my house and kids. You can't prove anything. That's what Marta said. Right before I showed her the GPS evidence and the hospital records and the video footage of you two planning my destruction, Jake took a step closer. You think you're smart, don't you? Smarter than someone who leaves a paper trail of text messages and thinks a fake business trip to Chicago is a solid alibi. This is your last warning. Back off, or things are going to get unpleasant. I smiled at him. Unpleasant? Jake, my wife tried to poison me. My sister-in-law ended up in the hospital. My marriage of 19 years is over. My kids are about to find out their mother is a cheating woman who nearly tore this family apart. How much more unpleasant do you think things can get? Jake stepped closer, trying to use his size to intimidate me. A lot more unpleasant. You know what I think, Jake? I think you're scared. I think you and Marta thought you were dealing with some pathetic, trusting husband who would just roll over and die when you poisoned his coffee. But instead, you're dealing with someone who fights back, someone who documents everything, someone who has better lawyers than you do. You don't know what you're dealing with. I'm dealing with a gym rat who thinks sleeping with married women makes him tough. I'm dealing with a guy who drives a scratched-up Mustang and probably still lives in his mother's basement. Jake's face went red. I'm going to destroy you. Get in line. Your girlfriend tried that already. He turned and walked back toward the street, but not before I saw him pull out his phone and take pictures of my house, my car, my license plate. Good. Let him document everything. Let him think he was gathering intelligence. Every photo he took, every threat he made, every stupid move he made was just more evidence for Ruth to use in court. I went back into my garage and checked the security cameras I'd installed the day before. Everything was recorded in high definition, backed up to the cloud, and admissible in court. Jake and Marta thought they were playing chess, but I was playing a completely different game, with rules they didn't even know existed. And I was winning. The break-in happened at 2 in the morning on a Thursday. I was awake, sitting in my kitchen with all the lights off, watching the security camera feeds on my laptop. Call it paranoia or call it preparation. Either way, I saw Jake's silhouette creeping around my backyard 45 minutes before he actually tried to break into my garage. He was wearing all black, like some kind of discount ninja, and he kept checking his phone for light instead of bringing a proper flashlight. For someone planning a break-in, he was remarkably unprepared. I watched him try the garage door, then the side window, then finally resort to picking the lock on the side door. It took him 23 minutes to get inside, which gave me plenty of time to call the police and set up my own little surprise. The motion-activated lights came on the second he stepped inside, flooding the garage with enough illumination to film a movie. Jake froze like a deer in headlights, squinting and cursing. "Looking for something?" I asked from the doorway that connected the garage to my kitchen. He spun around, and I got my first good look at him in full criminal mode. Black clothes, latex gloves, a crowbar in one hand, and a small camera in the other. He'd come prepared to plant evidence or steal something he could use against me. "You're trespassing," I said, holding up my phone. "I've got the whole thing on video, and the police are already on their way." "You don't understand what you're dealing with," Jake said, but his voice was shaking. "I'm dealing with a second-rate adulterer who thinks he's Ocean's 11. What exactly were you planning to do in here, Jake? Sneak something into the house? Steal something you could claim I threatened you with? Or were you just hoping to find something embarrassing you could use against me?" Jake looked around the garage like he was calculating his chances of escape. The side door he'd come through, the main garage door, or past me into the house. All bad options, and he knew it. "Marta deserves better than you," he said finally. "Marta deserves exactly what she's getting. A divorce, no money, and a boyfriend who's about to have a criminal record. I'm not going to jail for this. Breaking and entering, criminal trespass, attempted burglary, that's 3 felonies, Jake. In this state, that's looking at 5 to 10 years. The sirens were getting closer. Jake could hear them too. "Unless," I continued, "you want to make this easier on everyone." "What do you mean?" I walked over to my workbench and picked up a bottle of fish sauce I'd bought specifically for this moment. Vietnamese fish sauce, the kind that smells like low tide at a sewage treatment plant. "Your car is parked 2 blocks away, right? The scratched-up Mustang?" Jake's eyes went wide. "You stay away from my car." "Or what? You'll break into my garage?" "Oh, wait, you already did that." I walked past him toward the main garage door. "Here's the deal, Jake. You can stay here and explain to the police why you're in my garage at 2 in the morning with burglary tools. Or you can watch me pour this entire bottle of fish sauce through your car's air conditioning vents and then explain to the police why you're in my garage at 2 in the morning with burglary tools. That's destruction of property. So is scratching someone's car. So is breaking into someone's garage. Funny how that works." The police sirens were getting louder. Jake was running out of time and options. "Choose fast, Jake. Prison or fish sauce? What's it going to be?" He chose prison. Not intentionally, but by the time he'd finished calculating his options, 3 squad cars were pulling into my driveway, and he was trapped in my garage with a crowbar and a camera, and no reasonable explanation for why he was there. I opened the main garage door just as the first officer approached. "Evening, officer. I'm Will Dexter. I called about the break-in." "Where's the intruder?" I pointed to Jake, who was still standing in the middle of my garage, looking like a deer in headlights. "Right there. He picked the lock on the side door about 30 minutes ago. I've got the whole thing on security camera." The arrest was anticlimactic. Jake didn't resist, didn't try to run, didn't even try to come up with a plausible story. He just stood there while they cuffed him and read him his rights. "What was he after?" one of the officers asked. "No idea. Maybe ask his girlfriend. She's my wife." The officer raised an eyebrow. "Your wife's boyfriend broke into your garage?" "My soon-to-be ex-wife's boyfriend. We're going through a divorce. It's been complicated. I bet." After the police left with Jake in custody, I walked 2 blocks to where his Mustang was parked. The scratches I'd put in it a week ago had been professionally repaired. Fresh paint, perfect finish, probably cost him $3,000. I poured the entire bottle of fish sauce through the air conditioning intake vents. By morning, that car was going to smell like a dumpster behind a sushi restaurant in August. The smell would soak into the upholstery, the carpets, the air conditioning system. It would take months and thousands of dollars to get rid of, assuming it was even possible. I walked home and called Ruth Goldman's emergency line. Jake Turnbull just got arrested breaking into my garage, I told her voicemail. I've got security footage, police reports, and a very interesting story about what he was trying to do. Call me when you get this. Then I called Marta. Your boyfriend's in jail, I said when she answered. What? Jake. Breaking and entering, criminal trespass, attempted burglary. He's looking at 5 to 10 years. Silence. Marta, you still there? What did you do? Me? I didn't do anything. I was sitting in my kitchen when Jake broke into my garage at 2 a.m. I called the police. They arrested him. Pretty straightforward. He wouldn't do that. The security footage says otherwise. So do the 3 police officers who arrested him. So does the crowbar and camera he was carrying. Camera? Yeah, weird, right? Why would someone bring a camera to a burglary? Unless they were planning to plant evidence or document something they could use against the homeowner later. More silence. Here's the thing, Marta. Jake's going to need a good lawyer. A really good lawyer. The kind that costs $500 an hour. Too bad you don't have access to any money right now. Will, please what? Please help the man who tried to poison me? Please bail out the guy who broke into my house? Please forgive the woman who's been cheating on me for months? We can work this out. No, we can't. But here's what's going to happen. Jake's going to sit in jail until his arraignment. Then he's going to sit in jail some more because he can't make bail. And then he's going to take a plea deal because he can't afford a decent lawyer. Then he's going to spend the next few years thinking about what happens when you mess with someone who's smarter than you are. And what about us? There is no us, Marta. There's you and there's me, and there's a divorce proceeding that's going to leave you with nothing. I hung up and poured myself a beer. It was 3:30 in the morning, but I felt like celebrating. Jake was in jail, Marta was broke, and I was just getting started. Tomorrow, I was going to start working on phase 3 of my revenge plan. Because if they thought a night in jail and a smelly car were the extent of my retaliation, they were about to learn just how wrong they could be. I'm Will Dexter, and I'm very good at solving problems, even problems that fight back. The company party was Marta's last desperate play. Dave Millant, her boss at Pinnacle Advertising, was throwing his annual client appreciation bash at his mansion in the hills, and Marta had convinced him to let her use it as a platform to clear the air about her personal situation. What she didn't know was that Dave had already called me. Will, I need you to know that I had no idea about Marta and Jake, he'd said over the phone that morning. If I'd known they were using company resources to conduct an affair, I would have fired them both immediately. Company resources? Hotel rooms, expense accounts, company cars. We're talking about thousands of dollars in fraudulent expenses. I'm going to have to prosecute. That's between you and them, Dave. Actually, it's not. Marta's been telling people that you're having a mental breakdown, that you've been stalking her, threatening her, trying to sabotage her career. She's painting herself as the victim of a dangerous husband. I felt something cold settle in my chest. Is that so? I don't believe a word of it, but she's got some people convinced. She's planning to make a big speech tonight, in front of all our clients and staff. Something about how she's been afraid for her safety, how she's been trying to protect her children from an unstable father. Interesting strategy. Will, I've known you for 10 years. You're one of the most stable, rational people I've ever met. But if Marta gets up in front of 200 people and tells them you're dangerous, it's going to be hard to undo that damage. Then I guess I better be there to set the record straight. I was hoping you'd say that. Consider yourself invited. I spent the rest of the day preparing, not just getting dressed or planning what to say, but setting up what Ruth called the nuclear option. Every piece of evidence we'd collected, every document, every video, every text message, all organized into a presentation that would destroy Marta's credibility so completely that she'd never recover. The party was already in full swing when I arrived at Dave's mansion. 200 people in expensive clothes, drinking expensive wine, pretending to enjoy each other's company while secretly networking and gossiping. Marta was holding court near the bar, surrounded by a group of sympathetic colleagues who were nodding along as she told her story. She looked beautiful. New dress, professional makeup, the kind of composed vulnerability that made people want to protect her. It's been so difficult, she was saying as I approached. Living with someone who's become increasingly unstable, increasingly paranoid. I've been afraid to leave him alone with the children. That must be terrifying, one of her colleagues said. It is. Just last week, he accused me of trying to poison him. Can you imagine? He actually called the police and told them I'd put something in his coffee. Several people shook their heads in sympathy. Poor Marta, dealing with a crazy husband. Of course, the police found no evidence of any wrongdoing, she continued, because there wasn't any. But Will has become convinced that I'm trying to hurt him, that I'm having an affair, that I'm plotting against him. It's classic paranoid delusion. Have you considered having him committed? Someone asked. I've thought about it, for his own safety and for the safety of our children. But it's such a difficult decision to make. I stepped into the circle. Hello, Marta. The conversation stopped dead. Everyone turned to look at me, and I could see the calculation in their eyes. Was this the dangerous, unstable husband they'd been hearing about? Will, Marta said, her voice carefully controlled. I didn't expect to see you here. Dave invited me. He thought it would be good for me to hear your side of the story. My side? About how I'm paranoid and delusional, about how you're afraid for your safety, about how there's no evidence of any wrongdoing on your part. Marta's face went pale, but she kept her composure. Will, this isn't the place. Actually, I think this is the perfect place. I pulled out my phone and connected it to the mansion's sound system. Since you've been telling everyone about my mental health issues, I thought they might be interested in hearing about yours. What are you doing? I'm sharing some evidence, starting with the hospital report from when your sister Victoria was poisoned with magnesium sulfate. The magnesium sulfate that was in the coffee you made for me. The first document appeared on the wall-mounted screens around the room. Hospital letterhead, Victoria's name, a detailed analysis of the Epsom salts that had nearly ended her. This is private medical information, Marta said, but her voice was shaking now. Victoria signed a release. She's very interested in finding out who poisoned her. The next slide was a screenshot of Marta's text to Jake. Plan failed. He switched the cups. Victoria got it instead. We need to talk. A murmur went through the crowd. People were starting to understand what they were looking at. Then there's the fake business trip to Chicago, I continued. The one where you and Jake spent company money on a hotel room while lying to your husband and your employer. GPS tracking data appeared on the screens, showing Marta's car going to the Riverside Hotel instead of the airport. Hotel receipts charged to the company credit card. Photos from the hotel bar showing Marta and Jake together. You're violating my privacy, Marta said, but she was backing away from me now. I'm documenting adultery and fraud. There's a difference. The crowd was growing larger as people heard the commotion. Dave appeared at my elbow, his face grim. Keep going, he said quietly. The next slides showed Jake's break-in attempt. Security footage of him picking the lock, entering my garage with burglary tools, getting arrested by police. Your boyfriend is currently in jail, awaiting trial for breaking and entering, I announced to the room. He was carrying a camera and a crowbar. We think he was planning to plant evidence that would support your claims about my mental instability. Marta was trapped now, surrounded by 200 people who were staring at her like she was a fascinating specimen in a zoo. None of this proves anything, she said desperately. Doesn't it? Let's see what else we have. The final slide was a compilation of text messages between Marta and Jake, discussing their plan to have me committed, take my house, and split my assets. Messages about the coffee poisoning, messages about manipulating the children, messages about how pathetic and gullible I was. The room was completely silent now. 200 people staring at evidence of adultery, attempted poisoning, fraud, and conspiracy. So you're right, Marta, I said into the silence. Someone in this marriage has been delusional. Someone has been living in a fantasy world where they thought they could destroy another person without consequences. Someone has been so disconnected from reality that they thought they could get away with attempted homicide. I turned to face the crowd. But it wasn't me. Marta tried to run, actually tried to push through the crowd and escape, but there was nowhere to go. 200 people blocking every exit, all of them staring at her like she was a monster. Marta Chen, Dave said loudly. You're fired. Security will escort you out, and you can expect to hear from our lawyers about the fraudulent expenses. This isn't over, she said to me as security guards appeared at her elbows. Yes, it is, I replied. Your boyfriend's in jail, you're unemployed, you have no money, and everyone in your professional circle now knows exactly what kind of person you are. It's over. They walked her out through a crowd that parted like she was radioactive. I could hear people whispering, taking pictures, already posting about it on social media. By tomorrow, the story would be all over town. The ad executive who tried to poison her husband, the woman who used company money to fund her affair, the mother who was willing to destroy her children's father to get what she wanted. Dave handed me a beer. Heck of a presentation, Will. Thanks. I've been working on it for weeks. What happens now? Now I go home to my kids and start rebuilding my life. Marta gets to figure out how to survive without my income, my house, or my support. And Jake? Jake gets to spend the next few years in prison, thinking about what happens when you mess with an engineer who has time, tools, and a very specific set of skills. I finished my beer and headed for the door. People moved out of my way, some nodding respectfully, others staring like I was some kind of folk hero. Outside, I could see Marta sitting in her car in the parking lot, crying into her phone, probably calling her lawyer or her sister or whoever she thought might help her. But there was no help coming, no cavalry riding to her rescue, no last-minute reprieve or miraculous comeback, just consequences, pure mathematical, inevitable consequences. I got in my car and drove home to my children, who were waiting for me with homework questions and stories about their day. Normal life, the life I'd been fighting to protect. Marta had tried to destroy me with poison and lies and betrayal. Instead, she'd destroyed herself. I'm Will Dexter, and I'm very good at solving problems. Even problems that used to be my wife.